Hello and welcome to my 5 tips for Stellaris 2.2 and the MegaCorp DLC, which both came out on December 6th. And there's been a lot of big changes to some of the existing features, a lot of additions and new additions to the existing game with things like, what is it called? I think it's rare resources, right? Yeah, we got rare resources up here, and there's so much here that I think it's worth going over the 5 biggest things that I've found that I think are worth going over just to help you out on your playthroughs, whether it be single player or multiplayer. The number one thing I wanted to go over was where they hid the terraforming button. They've moved the planets down here in case you have a little bit of trouble finding that. That's like a sub tip, right? But yeah, the new terraforming button has been moved down to here. It's just to the left of the tile blockers, and it's no longer labeled terraforming, so it's kind of hard to find, but I think I understand why they did it like that. It's because once you know where terraforming is, you don't need to take up a giant thing with letters on it. You can just kind of click over here to go terraforming. But yeah, that one's pretty straightforward. Not a lot that I have to add to that other than where do you find it? It's on the planet summary near the bottom left. The next thing I wanted to go over was Enclave leaders. I really like Enclave leaders. They have the potential to be really strong because they come with a pretty powerful modifier. The governor one is just plus 10% trade value. If I go in and I find the Marauders, I'll be able to buy a, what are they called? A Admiral, I believe. So let's go in here and try and get a leader. Give me a general and an admiral for just to see what it's like. Hey, they're actually kind of expensive. They used to be only like 500 energy, which was going to be one of the other things that I was going to mention with these guys. There's a lot of advantage to Enclave leaders. You get them young. They usually come with a bit of experience, only rank 3, but it's better than rank 1. And I love their modifiers, especially the Admiral's modifier. That's a really good modifier. Plus 10 evasion, plus 10% ship fire rate. Like, there's very few leaders that you're going to have as good of modifiers at the very beginning. You might get like a cyborg, erudite, or something along those lines that's slightly better, but you can just outright buy this for a chunk of energy. So yeah, if you've got energy, and I would recommend you build your empire to be focused on energy, you should be able to get as many leaders, as many Enclave leaders as you want. They're cheap, they're young, they can get more modifiers, they come at a pretty decent level for snowballing, just so you can get more stuff out of them. So yeah, that's the second thing that I wanted to cover. The next thing that I wanted to cover, my tips, is the third thing I want to cover is rare resources and how you can buy them in the market. They are very useful for the, what do you call them? Edicts. You can come in here and buy things that make your ships a lot better at doing all kinds of different things. So you do need to have a stockpile of this stuff just kind of lying around so that you can spend them on the edicts, but it also comes in useful to have the stockpile if you run low on energy, because you can always come in here and just sell off your excess resources for usually a lot of energy. So it's useful for those two reasons, and that's why you should probably come in here and add a monthly trade of some rare crystals or some exotic gas or these motes as early as possible, just to get yourself a nice giant stockpile. As you can see here, I've been buying a lot of rare resources every month for a long time, and that has allowed me to get a giant stockpile of well, over 1,000 of each of those really important rare resources. Those are the 3 most important as far as I can tell. I mean, maybe you can argue living metal's useful for building mega structures, but that's only useful in certain situations. The next thing I wanted to cover, the 4th tip, was how you can now specialize your planets even further. Oops, I didn't need to go to the top. I wanted to go to the bottom here. If you look at this planet, it says it's a tech world, which gives a plus 5% research bonus, which is pretty good. And that has kind of pushed me in the direction of focusing this planet on energy as much as possible. Of course, you got to still account for your jobs and your pops and housing and all those other little things. So you can't overdo it, but you want to try and take advantage of this modifier as much as possible. This mining world only, oh, it gets 5%. I thought it was only going to be 2%. Some of them are only 2% bonuses. This rural world apparently isn't nearly as focused as this mining world. So this mining world gets a slightly better modifier on all the mining jobs. So that's easy to miss, and something that I think if you take advantage of it early on, it can really allow you to focus on one thing or stockpile one thing to a pretty, I don't know, excessive point, a point that you couldn't really up until this build. And the last thing I wanted to cover, I think a really fun and cool thing that they've added to the game is the Xeno-Compatibility. Oops, not a screenshot, that's not what I want to do. The Xeno-Compatibility Ascension perk, which allows you to get new species if you have two different species on a planet growing together. And when they do that, they will create a half species that is super powerful. And on top of that, you can then apply this new half species to everybody else in that umbrella. So this parent species made like one of these, and then I decided to apply that to everybody in the category. So now that I have 0 of the original species and 33 amazing POVs. I think after they became half things, they got an extra point. Where does it say it? Zeno Compatibility gives them +1 maximum trait points and +1 maximum traits. So after they became a half thingy, I kind of played around with their genetic code a little bit to make them as optimal as possible. So I've got cybernetics who are robust and fertile. And yeah, I think that combined with survivor and preols, natural intellects, earthbound, and all those fun things, this really makes for a powerful long-term build, especially if you know how to play around with generating half species on the planets. And yeah, that's all of my 5 tips that I wanted to cover. I might do another one in a couple weeks, a month, on some more tips for 2.2, but I'm thinking that I'll just do like 5 tips every time there's a big update to Stellaris. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to leave a like and to subscribe, and yeah, comment if you feel up for it. I'll see you around for the next one.